Hey, what is going on, everybody, and welcome to the College Info Geek Podcast, the internet's best resource for students looking to get ahead, and also the #1 podcast for cats.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. I was told this by a very reputable source.
Is this official?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think maybe we can put this in the show notes, but I have here an official picture of someone's cat watching my YouTube channel.
That seems very official.
I would say this is pretty official. Look how intent this cat is looking at the screen.
I mean, I'm down. Cats are pretty intense. They know what they're looking at.
Exactly.
They know.
This cat is very interested in learning
attention.
about some general workflow tips for making your operating system run more efficiently, as all cats should be.
Yeah, what are cats if not efficient? If they don't want to move, they're not going to move. But when they need to, they'll knock everything over at the speed of light. They're efficient.
It's very true. Actually, I think I've read somewhere that cats do not walk very efficiently.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
the zoology
I'll tell
majors.
you that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of it is the way they move is very optimized for stealth. So in terms of actual like calorie burning, they don't walk as efficiently as like a dog or something like that. I don't know. I read something that the way that humans walk is super duper efficient because our legs are like little reverse pendulums.
We got pretty neat legs, I guess.
Well, I mean, like, you kind of just like, I don't know, take weight off your left leg and it just like swings like a pendulum, and then you stand on it, and then it's like a reverse pendulum. It's just like weird stilt things.
Huh.
Yeah. That's why apes can't walk nearly as far as we can, because they burn like 3 times as many calories when they walk.
Those dumb apes get different legs.
Haha. Yep.
Duh.
Yep. That's why we win. Anyway, my name's Thomas Frank, and I'm here as always with my somewhat well-traveled friend, Martin Bamey. And today we're talking about travel because, well, I have at least been on a plane a few times. You've been on a plane?
Literally a few times. 3 times?
Have you been on a plane once?
I think 3 times.
Wait, you've been on a plane 3 times now?
Yeah. Once to test out planes.
That was
One
what?
to
That was 3 months
Seattle.
ago.
Yeah, one to Seattle, then one back from
one
Seattle.
back. Okay.
Therefore, 3 times.
So you had your plane ride from Denver to Colorado Springs, and then you have taken a real plane ride since then.
Yeah.
Was that one for PodCon, or was that something else?
That was for PodCon.
Okay.
Well, it was for PodCon. It was for me seeing the Pacific Northwest, but yeah, it was.
And then you were just
it coincided
at PodCon,
with PodCon.
where you were undoubtedly swarmed by throngs of fans, I'm sure.
Oh yes, thousands. I certainly did not kind of just mind my own business.
Same thing that happens every time I go to VidCon.
And just hang out in the
As
rain.
an educational content creator, I just can't keep the fans away. They just,
You're so educational.
Actually,
and then
there's 2 people who recognize me.
Teach me.
Meanwhile, there's a gigantic riot of people like chasing Logan Paul.
I don't know who that is. Is
Good.
it Wolverine? Is that his last name?
No.
Is that, I don't.
Don't even connect those 2 people together.
Oh, okay.
I don't
know these
I don't
people.
want those people connected. Logan Paul's a person that I don't have a whole lot of respect for. Partly because of what he did at VidCon. Because I remember when you're a featured creator, they tell you, don't go out into the public areas and attract a whole lot of unnecessary attention to yourself, because it could cause a stampede of fans. There have been injuries before. People have gotten trampled.
Really?
So what does Logan Paul do with his 7 million subscribers at the time?
He puts on his Wolverine outfit.
Puts out a video saying, hey, I have hidden $3,000 underneath a vending machine, and I'm going to be running around VidCon just out in public. And what happens? A gigantic stampede. I don't know if anyone got injured, but I was pretty disappointed.
That does sound like the opposite of keeping a somewhat low profile for the normal day's events.
That was my first exposure to him, other than the H3 video where he lies about being colorblind. So, overall,
well, we got a great. I'm sorry.
Wolverine
does cooler things than that sometimes.
He does.
Sometimes,
yeah,
he wears yellow and blue and he pulls it off in a way that I don't think I could, and that I respect Wolverine for that.
Have you tried?
I have not.
Have you ever worn a yellow T-shirt with blue jeans?
Because
I bet you could pull that off.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Not sure.
Anyway, let's talk about traveling. So I wanted to do an episode this week about just how to make travel a better experience, because I had some great travel experiences in college. I know you've had some great road trips at the very least.
Yes.
And one plane trip. So together we have some amounts of travel experience, and we haven't really done a travel episode in quite a long time. I mean, I know one of my very first episodes in the podcast was with Travis Sherry about travel hacking. That was episode 13.
That was a while ago.
Or 14. Which was, I don't know, 6 years ago?
Some amount of lots of years.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
and,
I've
and
had
this,
some travel happen.
This makes a lot of sense because the previous episode, last week's episode, was like,
How to capture
inspiration. A lot of my inspiration comes from travel, so there you go.
And yeah, and I guess if you want to, get some inspiration, like when you're able to go travel.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it. So I wanted to break this down into a few different categories. Number 1, how do you make it more affordable? 2, how do you make it more fun? 3, how to make it more efficient. And then 4, I want to talk a little bit about how to plan for travel, but I don't want to talk too much about it because to spoil what's coming up in the later minutes of this podcast, one of my tips on making it more fun is to not plan too much.
Yeah.
And you know what? Why don't we just launch actually into the more fun thing? Because it doesn't matter what kind of categories we do here. So yeah, my number 1 tip for making travel more fun is to refrain from trying to plan it too much. And I don't know what your travel experiences have been like, but my favorite travel experience that I've ever had involved going to Japan with my friends Ryan and Quentin. This was, I think, 2012. And we essentially had no plans other than like having made sure we had our passports and plane tickets. But I landed 13 hours before Ryan and Quentin landed because they were flying on a different airline. I forget the reason why. Oh, because I was in San Francisco for a business trip right before it. So I came from San Francisco to Japan. I had to wait for them 13 hours in the airport. And then they both got there and we're all just like, we don't know where we're staying. And it turns out most people in Japan don't speak English. And we didn't really have any knowledge of where to go, who to talk to, what blogs to look at. We didn't know anything. So I have this vivid memory of us just walking out of the airport into Tokyo at like 1 a.m. trying to find a hotel. We couldn't find one. Or actually, no, we did find one, but Ryan could not accurately convey to the person at the desk that we wanted like a reduced night's fee because it was already 1 a.m. So we ended up just staying up at a 24-hour long restaurant all night long. And then the next day we figured out how to find a hostel. So I think we were awake for 48 hours just straight.
Huh. Well, I wouldn't say that I would personally do that. I'd probably have my first night. I'd probably get somewhere to stay the first time. I don't want to stay up that late.
Okay.
But I definitely agree about the not planning things. I hate
that may be
planning
sensible,
too much.
but it was fun.
Well, and it also, like, it was thrown off a little bit because you didn't all arrive at once, which I'm sure would have made it easier.
I think if they had gotten into town at, like, noon or something, it would have been no problem.
Yeah.
But they got into town at, like, midnight.
So it's kind of a weird fluke.
But it was so much fun. I mean, it was stressful, but I don't know. There's just something about being somewhere where you've never been, you have no idea how anything works, and you just have to figure it out.
It sounds like a fantastic way to form a memory. I could just, if you're doing everything exactly as it says on the paper, you're not going to be focused exactly on what's around you. Whereas, you guys had to be like, okay, we need to really pay attention to what's going on everywhere because I don't even know where we're going next.
I mean, it's kind of like, have you ever done an escape room?
I have not.
Oh, you should do one. They're fun.
They do seem like they could be fun or a nightmare.
I mean, how would they be a nightmare?
I don't know. If it turns out it's actually run by a serial killer, and then
like that movie, Escape Room.
Yeah, is that a movie?
Yeah, they literally made an escape room movie where it's surprise, surprise, you're actually locked in and it's trying to kill you.
Well, there you go.
No, most escape rooms. I mean, like all escape rooms, at least the ones you pay to go into. You can just walk out at any time if you want to.
Oh, I'm not a fan of like small spaces, and I've always imagined there'd be some sort of claustrophobia-inducing section.
It really depends.
But I don't get to see the inside until I'm there, so I'm like, am I rolling the dice?
Usually the marketing materials will tell you kind of like what's coming up.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are horror themed. Some of them we're gonna have like tight spaces, and some of them are just puzzle rooms.
Oh,
in fact, the last two that I've done
puzzles sound fun.
The last two that I've done haven't even been escape rooms. They've been more like mission rooms. Like the last one I went to, it was you're basically getting into like a wizard's academy, and you have 1 hour to get sorted into a house, and to do that you have to do all these different puzzles to unlock something. So if you fail, which we did fail, you just walk out and you get nothing.
Oh.
Good day to you, sir.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
You lose. But some of them are actual escape ones. The worst one that I ever did was like a psychotic dentist's office, and there was an entire section which we got stuck at that was complete pitch black, claustrophobic, on your hands and knees maze.
Yeah, see, I don't want to do that.
I didn't like it. Yeah, and I was so sure that at some point they were going to turn the lights on and scare the crap out of me. They never did, but that's what kept me from being, I don't know, really gung-ho about exploring the maze.
Yeah.
It's like, at what point are they just going to pop out of me? So the scary ones, probably not for me, but they're just the puzzly ones. They're great. And being in a different country where you have no idea what's going on, what to do, it's kind of like being in a puzzle room like that. You got to figure things out. And aside from the 48-hour marathon, horrible like search to find a hostel, everything else was great. We'd wake up every day. We'd think, what do we want to do today? And then we'd make a plan. Or we'd come back at the end of the day, chill at the hostel, see what we wanted to do the next day, and just kind of play it by ear.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do on all my trips.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ashley doesn't agree. She likes to plan everything in advance because she likes to be excited about it beforehand, whereas I would rather just say, I know I'm going to be in this location for these days, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But as a sort of compromise, we usually list out like a giant maybe list, just cool stuff that we've read about or that she's researched. And that way, we can kind of, if we don't know what to do, we can just flip through it and then be like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let's go see if we can do that. It's also actually really important for food because I have dietary preferences. So obviously, one would want most of those ahead of time if they're going to have specific needs. Otherwise, you're just going to be hungry with nothing to do.
And yeah, I will make a note about food. So the first year that we went, we literally just walked into places as we saw them and ate, and that was great. But when I went with Anna in 2015, we still didn't plan much ahead of time. But when we got there, I was looking at like, where's the best ramen in, Osaka? Where's the best sushi in this section, like the Ginza section of Tokyo where we are? And I'd find either Yelp lists or just blogs from other people who had traveled there. And that resulted in us finding food that was phenomenal. So, yeah, I would say, maybe, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't have a super planned out itinerary because kind of like we talked about in the burnout episode, the more you do that, like the more it's going to feel like a to-do list and the more you're going to be thinking about like, what's the next thing we're going to instead of really experiencing the thing you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, and if you're running late, it's going to get stressful. You're focused on the future. You're not focused on the present. And if you're traveling, the whole point is to get out of that mindset, which you're probably stuck in normally.
Yeah.
So
the one thing I will say is there is an exception, and that is kind of what Ashley wants to do. If there are very specific things that you really want to do, like say you're going to Paris, you want to see the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
You can't see Notre Dame, I guess, pour 40 out for that one.
Well, you can see parts of it.
You can see parts of it. I think they're going to rebuild it.
I mean, a lot of it's like stone and stuff.
It's true. I think they will rebuild it, and I think that personally I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But there will be people who probably can, and I feel for them.
Well, I've never seen it, so I won't be able to tell the difference.
True. Yeah, I'll just be like, that's what it looks like. I guess I know cerebrally.
I'm a little bit sad that I have never seen it, but what are you going to do? I couldn't have predicted that.
I guess I'm a little sad about it, but then again, I know like there are so many other monuments and things that we have known about, but like there's just never a chance to see them.
Yeah.
Like out of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, like the original list, only the Great Pyramid is still standing. Hanging Gardens of Babylon are gone. Library of Alexandria is gone. They're all gone. Too bad. But there are new wonders to see. Anyway, for those kinds of things, it is worth planning in advance how to do them because sometimes you can run into things you need to know about. Good example. When I was in Japan the second year, I really wanted to see Mount Fuji. So, like we did the first year, Ryan and I did no planning. We just booked a night in a hostel next to Mount Fuji in this town called Kawaguchiko and took the bullet train over there, got in, and only then did I start doing some reading, and I read that during the spring and summer, Mount Fuji is more often than not completely shrouded in fog all day long. So it's a very good possibility that I was going to wake up and not be able to get a picture of it.
Oh.
And I was like, or even see it. I was like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. Though I did read, and I got lucky here, I read that if you go early in the morning, it's like as early as you can, then there's a better chance that you can see it. So I woke up at 5 a.m. one day, went out there on my rollerblades, and got lucky because it was clear. But then later in the day, it was not clear. I think I had like a 3-hour window where it was clear. And I got some dope pictures.
Okay, so that one worked out at least.
It did work out, but it was risky. It could have easily not worked out. I mean, the hostel was great. It was probably the most comfortable hostel I've ever stayed at. But yeah, it could have been a total waste. At least for seeing Mount Fuji. There were a couple of caves that we saw over there, so it wasn't just that. But yeah, so if you want to see something that's, I don't know, that you really want to do it, you want to make sure you don't leave that place without having done that thing, plan that one out, because there could be all kinds of things. Like another good example, if you want to go up to Tokyo Tower, or not Tokyo Tower, the Sky Tree in Tokyo, which I believe is the world's tallest freestanding structure of any kind at this point. I could be wrong about that. There's like 3 lines you got to wait in, and it could be several hours of waiting.
Oh.
So if you showed up like an hour or 2 before the viewing deck closed and it's your last day of the trip, you might be out of luck.
So you gotta plan your main things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
But in between
the skeleton
the main
of
things,
your trip,
I would say try to spend some time just immersing yourself in the culture and avoiding the touristy things.
Oh yeah, a lot of touristy things aren't going to be a proper representation of anything that's actually going on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are constant stories of, especially for American tourists, like prices that are completely different for the tourists, and then if you spoke their language, you'd see, wait a second, that's not the real price.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is if you're just doing touristy things, you don't really get a sense of what it's like to live in that country.
No.
Or even in that city sometimes. Like even New York City. If you go to New York City and you just go see the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building, I keep wanting to say Eiffel Tower. That's not a New York City.
It's everywhere. Everyone has one.
There's a smaller one, also from Vegas. It's fun, but like it just, you don't really get a feeling of what it's like to live in the city. You don't see some of the really, truly interesting things. You don't have those spontaneous experiences. You just get your pictures of the Statue of Liberty and the Central Park and whatever, and you go home. You get your I Love NY t-shirt. And that's fine, but I think everyone knows it to themselves to make sure they don't miss out on the lesser known parts of the city that they're going to. And no one knows what those parts are going to be. You have to just kind of go explore.
Yeah. And the touristy things is kind of the opposite of why I want to travel in the first place, because every time I go somewhere, I want to have nothing to do because I want to experience what would it be like if I lived here. I'm kind of like trying to peek into parallel universes where I live somewhere else instead. Mm-hmm. And just what's a normal life like over here?
Yeah.
You know? And then so I do normal stuff.
One of my favorite memories from Japan. So Anna and I went in 2015, and it was kind of cool because the dollar to yen ratio was very in favor of the dollar that year. It had been the opposite case the other 2 years I went, so everything was very expensive previous 2 times. So we go, and we're like, everything's going to be so cheap. It's going to be awesome. And it was, but it also meant that everyone and their brother was traveling to Japan to take advantage of that situation, which meant all the hostels were super booked. So we would book a night at a hostel, and we never had a problem getting a bed because there's a lot, but we always had problems getting more than like a night or 2. Which meant for the first 2 weeks of our vacation, we were just constantly lugging all of our luggage across the city to the next hostel, having to have him store it behind the desk, then come back later, put it in the room. It's kind of a mess. That being said, I still recommend staying in hostels for the most part.
What's the difference between that and like a hotel?
Hostel is, and I'm going to talk about this in the cheap, like the make it cheaper section.
Cool.
But
I've never been in a hostel.
Hostel is just a really bare bones hotel, and it could be as bare bones as you sleeping in a room with 16 other people in bunk beds. Or it could, because like most hostels I've been to, they offer super cheap bunks in big shared rooms, and they also sometimes offer like, semi-private rooms, or you're only rooming with 3 people, and sometimes private rooms. So you just kind of have more choice, and then the amenities are vastly reduced. So instead of having room service available, you have like a shared kitchen downstairs where you can cook your own food.
It's not too different than like a dorm.
It's basically a traveler's dorm, actually.
That's cool.
That's a really good way to explain it. But then there's often private rooms that you can get for a bit more if you want. So there was one day where we were kind of tired of Japanese food. Really wanted something like American or just something that was closer to home. And we were in Osaka, so we found this place that was run by an Australian dude. And it was supposed to be like good either Australian or American food. So there's burgers and hot dogs and all that kinds of stuff. We're like, yeah, we want that just for one day. And we go there, and he super cool guy, and he just gives us all these tips. And one of them was, hey, have you ever tried Airbnb? And I've never tried Airbnb before. So this was my first ever experience with it. But it was great because we got a whole place to ourselves. And to save money, we found a place that was kind of like off the beaten path in Tokyo. It was like a few subway stops away from all the main districts. So there was really not a whole lot cool or touristy where we stayed. But we had our own apartment just in this normal section of Tokyo. And we had that for a full week. So it was almost like living there for a week.
Yeah,
and it was
that's
cool.
like the perfect idea of a vacation to me.
Yeah, and
it's exactly what I want out of a vacation.
We just wake up. Some days we take the train over to the cool sections like Shibuya or, boy, why can't I think of the Akihabara? That's the one, the big anime arcade area. And sometimes we go hang around there. Or we'd go take day trips to Yokohama or some cool area to hike. But then we'd come back, have dinner at some place that was never talked about in tourist magazines, and we'd go back to the apartment and read books and just chill. We also experienced an earthquake.
Oh.
That was my first ever
that's cool.
earthquake
I've never
experience.
had one of those.
It was very weird because I was like, I looked at the window, I'm like, all the buildings are swaying. This is really weird. And then it hit our building and stuff started to shake a little bit.
Huh.
Apparently, it was an earthquake that happened way, way off the coast, like 100 miles off the coast of Japan. But it was so powerful that even Tokyo was affected. It's kind of crazy.
This episode just makes me want to go to Japan. I probably can't go to Japan as soon as we're done recording this. So
this is the main experience I could tell you about.
I'm on my way tonight.
So much good ramen. Actually,
I don't think I've ever had ramen.
I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of ramen options for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I've
not a whole lot of vegan ramen that I know of. I don't know. Well, if there is vegan ramen, it's probably going to be in kanji or hiragana, so you're going to have to learn how to read that.
That's fine.
That is fine. Actually, you know how to read that because you're taking.
Yeah, I'm taking Japanese lessons. It's the language that I'm actively learning, whereas French and Spanish are kind of just on low effort maintenance. Occasionally, I'll watch some Pokemon, but they're not disappearing anytime soon. I'm focusing on Japanese, but now I just want to go. But I can't do that right this second. It would be without planning.
That's true. You could just go ahead and do it.
I feel like that's a bad idea at this very time.
Plus, you have travel plans.
Yeah,
soon.
I already have stuff to do.
What you should do is go in a year during April to see the cherry blossoms.
Oh, okay.
And then everything else should just not be planned. That's what I think.
And then I'll accidentally live there.
And then accidentally live
forever.
There. Yeah. See, I don't think I would want to live there, but it's fun to be there for a few weeks. This week's episode of our show is brought to you by our friends over at Skillshare. Skillshare is an awesome platform with over 27,000 different courses that can help you to increase your skills in many different areas that can help you become more creative or even increase your career prospects. They've got courses in business, in marketing and analytics, in video production, animation, graphic design, all kinds of stuff, including a course from yours truly. I've got a whole productivity course on Skillshare, so if you want to learn how to manage your to-do list, your calendar, your email, your note-taking system, and your file organization system, and make them all work in harmony, you can check out my class over on Skillshare. It's called Productivity Masterclass, Building a Custom System That Works, or a class that just came out today that I'm pretty excited about. There's one from Aaron Draplin, who is a very famous graphic designer, logo designer guy, who also, I believe, lives in the Pacific Northwest. If I'm not incorrect, possibly Portland, maybe.
I mean, I think he's at least from that area,
there's
there. Some connection there. I don't know the exact connection, but there is one.
I feel like he lives there, but he's got a whole new class that just released on his entire workflow. So if you want to see how a master logo designer actually works and the processes and tools that they use, that would be a great course to check out as well. In addition to, like I said, the other 27,000 plus courses on the platform. The other great thing about Skillshare is that they have embraced the principle of active learning, which I'm a big fan of, and every single one of their courses includes a project that you can sink your teeth into to start using what you're learning. And there are also areas where you can get feedback and post questions both for other people in the class, but also the teacher themselves. So if you want to get started learning, then be one of the first 500 people to go over to Skillshare.com/geek and sign up. And when you do that, you're going to get a 2-month free trial of their service. Big thanks as always to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode and being a huge supporter of our show. And another huge thanks goes out to our other sponsor this week, Brilliant. Brilliant is a learning platform for anyone who wants to increase their abilities in math, science, and computer science. And every single course, every single problem, every single challenge that Brilliant puts out is built with the principle of active learning in mind. They do not want you passively sitting back and just intaking information. They want you getting your hands dirty, dealing with the concepts, getting stuck sometimes, and having to go find information to solve a problem at hand. And because every single thing they do is built with that principle in mind, you learn a lot more effectively, a lot more efficiently, and your interest level stays a lot higher while you're learning, whether it's topics like calculus or math for quantitative trading and finance, statistics and probability, or science topics like classical mechanics and gravitational physics, or even computer science topics like Python programming and the basics of computer memory and computer algorithms. Whichever other courses that you're going through, you're going to find bite-sized problems that are going to challenge you, and sometimes they're going to make you get stuck. But once you do get stuck, you're going to find a very detailed wiki with tons of example problems that are worked out step by step, and lots of very detailed explanations of the concepts that you're learning. So when you do get stuck, you can go find that information and you can bring it back and solve those problems. And in addition to their in-depth courses, there is also a new section this year called Daily Challenges, where every single day they're putting out new challenges in tons of different topical areas. So if you want to make learning new things a daily habit, then that new Daily Challenges area is a great place to be spending some time. And it's also a great way to start learning about new subjects that you might not have given much thought to before. So if you want to get started learning today, then be one of the first 83 people to go over to brilliant.org/collegeinfogeek. And once you go there, you can sign up for free and start doing daily challenges for free every single day. But if you want to get full access to all their in-depth courses, along with the entire archive of their daily challenges from the beginning, you can also sign up for their premium subscription. And again, if you were one of the first 83 people to use that link and sign up, you're going to get 20% off that annual subscription. So once again, brilliant.org/collegeinfogeek. And as always, huge thanks goes out to Brilliant for sponsoring this episode and being a supporter of College Info Geek. Let's get back into it. The last thing I wanted to say for Make It More Fun is to try to learn a little bit of the language. You don't have to go as hard as like you are going, because you're actively trying to learn.
Oh, I don't want to go to a country if I can't converse almost exclusively in that language while I'm there.
I didn't care about that.
Kind of like it's a very important part of the experience for me.
Mm-hmm. But like in Japan, for example, many things, like you can get by without knowing anything, because many things are either written in English and Japanese, or like if you go to a restaurant, almost all the menus have pictures of every single item.
Oh,
which is kind of interesting.
That's cool.
But Japanese people in general do not know how to speak English. They might know how to read a little bit of it because they kind of learn it in school, but they learn it in school the way we learn Spanish and French in school. Like very half-heartedly, I would say. And with almost no emphasis on conversing in it. It's usually just learning vocab and how to write a little bit. So if you don't know anything, it could be kind of tough. I spent some time just learning like how to read hiragana, which was useful for finding my way around. And then I learned just like a few random words, like, where's the bathroom, things like that. How much is a night here? How much is this? How do you say? Things like that. That was pretty helpful. And it's fun. It's another like puzzling it out kind of thing. If you know nothing and you go to a country, then you're just like completely lost. But if you know a little bit, then I don't know, there's like little things you can latch onto and figure out.
Yeah, I can't say it would be super fun. Like living in the moment's cool and all, but if I was just straight up lost with no recourse, I don't know that it would keep being fun. Until, in retrospect, maybe I'll be like, whoa, remember that time I was lost and horrified? But in the moment, it's going to be pretty unpleasant if I literally can't tell where I'm going. Yeah.
Anything you have to say about making it more fun?
I mean, that's for making it fun. That's my biggest thing is just not planning at all. So having more tips would be the opposite to me because it would involve planning parts of it. I want to live like I live there. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. And I feel like a lot of the other stuff, like being more in the moment, comes sort of naturally. Like when I went to Seattle, it was a little chilly out and it was kind of misting, raining a little bit. But that didn't matter because we were on a trip, so then we just naturally walked 40 or 50 minutes to go down to the Puget Sound, to go to a bookstore, to do stuff. Like, that stuff just comes naturally to me. Like, I'm always willing to do a little extra effort to make use of stuff. Whereas here I would procrastinate and just say, no, the weather's not good enough.
Oh, yeah.
Wah, it's not perfect outside.
I do have one more little tip. And this is quite specific to my experience in Tokyo. It may not be the best thing for every place, but we rented bicycles one day in Tokyo, and that was amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah, because when you're walking, you just can't see as much because you're slower.
Yeah.
If you're in a very highly developed city like Tokyo with a great public infrastructure, then there's the trains, so you can get around, but you're still not seeing a whole lot. And then cars are very insular. So bikes, if you can get a bike, you just see a lot.
That sounds like a great idea. Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess one thing I could mention is to have fun, you don't actually need as much time as one might think. Mm-hmm. So, like, you're talking about you were in Japan for a few weeks. I was in Seattle for several days. But really, one solid day somewhere is enough to make me feel refreshed and inspired and have fun. So, like, my recent time in Lincoln, I only really stayed one night and then immediately came back. But it's still memorable. The first time Ashley and I stayed at an Airbnb in a different neighborhood in Denver.
That was just in town, right?
Yeah, in Denver. It was in town and everything wasn't that expensive. We just took a lift there, Very low-cost vacation. We stayed one night that very first time we did it, just one. But it is an incredibly memorable experience, and it felt like we were there for days because of how much stuff we did, especially because there was almost no travel time.
Yeah.
Taking away from the vacation. And then, so basically, close vacations are within your grasp. Short vacations, Ashley's flown out somewhere Friday after work. She'll come back either really early Monday morning or late on Sunday. Mm-hmm. She doesn't even need to take days off. So,
yeah, true.
Like, a vacation to Japan may sound a little out of reach because it's expensive. You might want to be there for a while and a lot of stuff. But even just a different part of town or the next town over for just a day or two that's enough for inspiration and present-mindedness and feeling refreshed for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've often thought about, like, the fact that I live in Denver, but there's really only a few main thoroughfares that I ever go to.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a few parks I go to, I've got the climbing gym, I have the stores I go to, and it's all kind of centralized in one quadrant of the city. Maybe occasionally I'll go down to the south part for the arcade down there. Maybe occasionally I'll go to Boulder, but you know where I hardly ever go? To the northwest side of the city where Book Bar is.
Yeah.
Almost never.
And I love that neighborhood.
So when we're over there, it's just like, yeah, this is like a totally different
city. Yeah, it feels like
almost
a different place entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And, even not in a big city. In Iowa, Ames, West Des Moines, downtown Des Moines, all sorts of, like, Iowa City, tons of stuff within just like an hour's drive or a half hour's drive. They all felt significant. When you're walking around a place, a small portion of a city feels like a significant area to explore.
Mm-hmm. Or even, and something that's quite memorable to me, camping.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just that really easy, laid-back camping trip we did back with Brandon in college. Like, that was in the middle of nowhere.
It was.
It felt like getting away from everything.
Yeah, that could be done, like, almost anywhere. Mm-hmm. Not entirely anywhere because of property and whatnot. But yeah, but it's easy. That's accessible. Within the grasp of, like, everyone, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, like, travel could just be like anything where you're kind of away from home for a day.
You're getting away from your daily routine. You're getting away from your work and your cooking and your cleaning and that little quadrant of the city that you call home. Mm-hmm. So it's not a huge. I need thousands of dollars and 2 weeks of vacation time saved up.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unreasonable to imagine most people could just do out of nowhere. But literally,
difficult.
I could just travel somewhere this weekend. I could just go to Boulder and stay at some really cheap Airbnb and bam, vacation this weekend for very little.
Cheap in Boulder, though?
I don't know. Really cheap for Boulder. Or I'll just sleep in someone's yard and I won't tell them I'm there.
Actually, what you should do someday, I don't know if you've done this already, is go get an Airbnb just somewhere in the mountains. Because I remember when I went
I wanted to do that for a while.
When I went to Aspen for the Tough Mudder, it's expensive to stay in Aspen, because it's Aspen. That's where all the rich people go. But there are towns maybe like 30 minutes up the road where you could get a really cheap Airbnb and still be up in the mountains and be in your mountain biking or hiking or fishing or mountain lakes, all kinds of cool stuff, and pay like $60 or something for a night.
Yeah.
So that might be worth doing.
Yeah, sounds great.
So let's talk about how to make it more affordable. I think this is like the biggest issue for most people. So for travel, the 3 biggest expenses are going to be getting to wherever you're going, especially if you're going somewhere far away, especially if you're going somewhere where you got to fly, your lodging, and then your food.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of chump change.
Yeah, and in your control. You know, if you're going to spend $1 billion on like knickknacks and souvenirs, it's your fault.
Yes.
It's not like budgeting could have saved you. That was just your call.
Like you could go to Vegas and make your biggest expense just, I don't know, buying water balloons.
But it's 100% your call.
Yes, yeah, absolutely your call. But you got to have somewhere to stay. You got to get there somehow, and you got to eat. Fortunately, most of those things can be reduced in price quite a bit. So flights are the hardest one. The way we got to Japan the first time was quite fortunate because my friend Ryan had like a host father that he had stayed with in Japan during high school as part of a student exchange program, and his host dad worked for Delta. So everyone who works for an airline gets what are called buddy passes, and buddy passes let you fly at cost, essentially. And you know what? Actually, now that I'm remembering this, I only got to use one of his buddy passes the second year we went. The first year, I just had to find my own ticket because he only had one for himself and Quentin. So I was able to find a ticket for $900. So if you don't have a host father who lives or works at Delta or whatever, the best way to do it is just to create a price alert on like Skyscanner or Kayak. I'm not sure if Google Flights will let you do alerts, but Google Flights is a good way to look for flights. And then it will tell you like, all right, it's probably a good time to buy now. And if you can create a price alert maybe like 3 months ahead of time, then you can hopefully snag the best possible price.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll add now that I didn't know then is you got to make your price alert, but then you also have to check Southwest every once in a while.
Oh, yeah, because that's not included.
For whatever reason, Southwest is never in any of the flight aggregators. Everyone else is.
And
this is for Americans.
I'm sure this is somewhat mysterious, but the flight, like basically flight tickets, they just fluctuate in price from day to day for reasons. I'm sure that are partially reasonable, but are also partially I can't predict them.
Some of them are not reasonable because I've looked at a flight in an incognito browser sometimes, and it'll be different than when I'm logged in.
Yeah, so that just make up numbers and see which one you pay for.
Yeah. So hunt around, see if you can find a better deal, put up those flight alerts, have them go to your email. The closer it gets, maybe switch it over to the daily frequency instead of weekly. And hopefully you'll get something good. Or road trip.
Yeah.
Because that's what you've done.
Yeah, and I loved my road trips. Mm-hmm. And I think both of those were the big road trips where I went up to the Northwest and it was several days long. I rented a car to get there, and I didn't know this at the time, but apparently with my credit card, and I think with many, if not most, major credit cards, you've automatically got rental car insurance included, like liability insurance.
Really?
Yeah, because they'll try to sell you that when you're renting the car.
Oh, okay.
But like the extra liability insurance for their car can be covered by many credit cards, and with the fallback being your insurance.
I think so. I guess the one thing I'll say here is anybody who wants to use that should check their own.
Always check. Yeah, anything financial we say should be like quadruple checked. Mm-hmm. I'm not responsible if you break a rental car. I'm just saying like because of that fact. Last time when I rented a car when we were in Seattle, we flew up there. I just wanted to go to Portland for a day and came back immediately. Mm-hmm. So I rented a car for like $25. Just drove down to Portland and came back.
That's awesome.
Same day. It was just absurdly cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm renting a car when we go to Iowa in like a few weeks.
Yeah, it's nice to not put your own like miles on your car, and then it's a new car generally, so it's pretty fancy. It was compared to my last one.
Mm-hmm. And so for me, and I think this will also be a calculation that anybody with a full-time job needs to run. It can seem expensive to fly versus drive, but take going to Iowa, for example. That's a 12-hour drive each way. So I lose 2 full days just staring at the countryside of Nebraska and the road.
Yeah.
And like every time I look at the flights, I'm just like, oh, it's going to be, $300 per person to get to Iowa, which we got lucky and looked at Southwest and it was much cheaper than that. But it's still always more expensive to fly. But like, what could I do with those 2 days? Because I work for myself, I could make 2 videos probably, and I could make the money back easily. And even somebody who has a regular job, if you're taking extra days off to drive somewhere, like what kind of income are you losing?
Yeah.
Just to save a little bit of money on your flight.
Well, and depending on how long you're driving, both of my road trips to the Northwest involved us staying once or twice at other places on the way. Like we split it up, and because of that, we explored a ton of things. I saw many different cities on the way there and back, and it made it worth it. But that means that every day of driving was accompanied by a day of hotel cost.
Yeah.
So it adds up pretty quick. I could have easily flown and skipped a
But
bunch
I could
of
see,
stuff.
one time driving from here to Seattle through the mountains, that's like an adventure. If you had to drive to Chicago, I think it would be a different
I wouldn't.
Like,
it wouldn't be an adventure.
Super boring.
Yeah.
Kind of already know everything along the way, and it just wastes all your time. So like it makes more sense to fly in that case.
Yeah.
There's no adventure to like. I don't want to say that there's no adventure to be had because you can make
There's
adventure
not for
sitting in
me
a cardboard
because
box.
I already know
But yeah, not
what's
for you.
there.
Not for me.
And I gotta say, the scenery. I love the Midwest, but the scenery driving up through Utah up to the Northwest is very different.
That scenery is gorgeous.
I-80 in Nebraska, it's like they intentionally put it in the most boring parts because I know that there's going to be better nature somewhere, but it's not where the interstate is.
Well, yeah, not a direct route anyway. So that's how to save on transit. And then for like in the city transit, you can look up like travelers programs. So for Japan, there's something called the JR Pass. And for a week, I think it's about $350. And that seems like a lot, but one Shinkansen trip, which is a bullet train, from like Tokyo to Osaka or Tokyo to Kyoto, that could be $200.
Really?
Yeah. So if you are going to Japan and you really want to experience like a lot of the country, so you want to go all the way down to Hiroshima or something, which you should because Hiroshima is beautiful, it's absolutely worth it. Going from Tokyo down to Hiroshima and back would be probably $500 in Shinkansen. Now you could do the night bus and it's much cheaper, but then you're sleeping in like a horribly uncomfortable bus seat for 12 hours or some crazy thing like that. So look up those kind of things. I think that European countries often have travelers discounts for trains. So depending on where you're going, you want to look at that. And I'll just say this now. I was going to mention this later, but there is a site called WikiTravel, just like Wikipedia. And for basically any country, city, anywhere you want to go, there's like a whole wiki article that will have this kind of information. So again, I don't think you want to like dig too deep into these articles to plan out your entire itinerary, but it's good for knowing how to get deals, knowing where you might want to stay, things like that.
A vague idea of how life will function so that you're not lost and stuck.
And there's also like stay safe information.
Yeah.
So like it'll say like, for instance, if you're going to Jakarta, it's like there's theft problems in these neighborhoods. Maybe, keep your passport hidden or make sure you have your like wallet on a chain or something. I don't know. Speaking of Jakarta, or any city around that area, another great way to save money is to go to a part of the world that isn't very expensive. So there's a good reason why Southeast Asia is super popular with young travelers. South America also great
all
option.
The nomads are just because their dollars stretch very far.
Yeah, you go down to Chile, you go to Thailand, you go to someplace in Indonesia that's not Bali. You can live like a king or queen on very little money. You go to London or New York City, it's going to be a little harder. You can still make things cheap, and we'll talk about some of the things you can do, but you go to a place where things are generally cheaper, then you can stretch your budget a lot further and still have a lot of adventure. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it, though I ended up going to one of the most expensive places anyway.
Yeah.
Because Japan's pretty expensive, but yeah. When you're there, so whether it's an expensive place or a cheap place, there are those other two factors. You have lodging and you have food. So with lodging, look for hostels. When I was traveling, it was Hostel World and Hostel Bookers. Both of these sites might still be available, but I know one has since purchased the other one. I can't remember which one did which, but I think they're both sites you can go to, and you can look up hostels in basically any city. Like I said, hostel is basically just like a hotel with bare bones amenities. Sometimes you're sleeping in a big old bunk room with a bunch of people. Usually it's other travelers. I've never worried about safety with it. I think it's fine personally. But if you are worried about safety, there's often private rooms that are still a lot cheaper. Like the private rooms, the Tokyo hostels were, I think, 50 to 60 a night, like dollars. And then the bunk rooms were $25 a night.
Oh.
So
that is cheap.
Super cheap. And the hostels often have either kitchen facilities, so you could just go to a supermarket, buy groceries, make your own meals for super cheap, or sometimes they even provide meals. I went to San Diego once just by myself for like a little vacation, and I found this backpackers hostel. It was $20 a night in America, which was crazy to me, and they had meals.
That is absurd.
Yeah, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was really simple breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like breakfast might have been like a bowl of Raisin Bran, but it was food. It would keep you alive.
Yeah, unless you're like there to
bad.
explore the food culture, I feel like food is an incredibly good place to save money.
Yeah.
So that works out fine.
Or save all your money up for like one or two big splurges. Like in Japan, we saved our money for yakiniku, which is just like this delicious, super high quality meat that you grill yourself at the table. And it was amazing. And I think Quentin spent like $100 just by himself on that one meal.
Yeah, save all your money for the fanciest restaurant you can find.
Yeah, maybe not the fanciest, because you could.
It's got to be the fanciest.
Probably spend all of your money on one meal if you go to the fanciest.
That's fine.
If you go to like French Laundry or something, but you could splurge on one or two meals that you really want to experience, and then for the rest of them, just kind of like eat rice balls or something. Don't spend a whole lot of money, or find a hostel that covers your meals. And then I will also mention Airbnbs, because sometimes you can find very cheap Airbnbs. I think the little apartment Airbnb that Anna found for us was $60 a night. And since the hostel's charged per person, it was about the same. Because I think it was about $30 a night in most places in Tokyo.
That's pretty good.
So not bad at all. Yeah. And then just good day planning can help for cutting down on travel costs, like once you're within the area. If you're like, I'm going to go to Mount Fuji in the morning, and then I'm going to go to Tokyo Tower in the afternoon, that's kind of like a very long Shinkansen ride during the middle of the day. So if you plan to do, all of your Akihabara stuff in one day, then you can just go there and only pay for the train once, that kind of thing. Yeah. Anything else that you've done for saving money while traveling?
Honestly, I haven't traveled enough for me to try to save money very often.
Okay.
It's been so infrequent that I was just like, I don't really care how much this road trip to the Northwest costs. I've never done it, so I'm just going to pay for whatever happens. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'd spent an absurd amount of money, but I didn't think about budgeting yet. I will be thinking more about that now because I'd like to travel more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But
one thing that can be cool is like to use the Lime scooters or bikes or the birds or whatever.
I love those everywhere.
They're great. Not every city has them, but San Diego had them, and it made getting around so much cheaper because we didn't have to rent a car. We didn't have to. We did rent a car. We didn't have to use it at least. We didn't have to take Ubers. We would just walk out the door, find a bird scooter, and spend like $1 to get to the beach.
Yeah.
And it was fun. In fact, I think there was one point where Anna was like, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't really care what we do. I just want it to be slightly far away so we can keep riding the bird scooters."
Yeah.
And she likes the bird scooter so much that I bought her one for her birthday. So now when we go around town, I just ride my boosted board sometimes, and she rides the scooter with me. It's fun. Sometimes getting places can be fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how to make it more efficient. I have some packing tips. Number 1, and I think this is a useful thing to build ahead of time, or maybe just build it and make sure you save it. Create a template of things you need to pack for trips. So I do this in Todoist. I just have like a whole template list of things to pack. That way I never forget, socks or something, or chargers for the devices I want to bring. And then I just duplicate all those items into a brand new list when I'm packing. For space, you can actually travel to a different country with one backpack. The secret is these vacuum seal roll-up bags you can buy. You can get them for pretty cheap on Amazon. They're literally just like these plastic bags. You put your clothes in them, you zip them up, and then they have like these one-way air vents at the bottom. So you roll the bag up, and it just squeezes all the air out, and it's like a vacuum seal bag, except for you roll it instead of having.
Are these different than like the packing cubes?
Packing cubes just help you organize.
Okay.
So, and actually, most like, I don't know, hardcore digital nomad travelers that I've followed in the past will recommend using both. So they'll do like the roll-up vacuum bags to like basically compress their clothes down to a super small size, and then they use the packing cubes just to organize their luggage.
Okay.
I've never really used the packing cubes. I just use the bags. But the first year, I was able to do all of Japan on one backpack. Though I will say technically 2 backpacks, because another tip is to have a day pack. Because it's not really that fun to lug your huge backpack around on like a day trip. But you still might want to bring like your camera or your passport, things like that. So bring like a very tiny, small, thin backpack with you. And just have it be empty when you're traveling on the plane.
Were you able to just store like an absurd amount of clothing, or were you able to do laundry or something while you were there?
Yeah, you just do laundry.
Okay, I've not done laundry while traveling.
So some hostels have their own laundry.
That makes more sense.
But for the most part,
I don't know if I could fit 2 weeks worth of clothing in a
no,
backpack.
you can't. You just do laundry.
Okay.
You know, some hostels have laundry, but for the most part, we would just like find a laundromat. And in Tokyo, I mean, it's so dense in Tokyo and most Japanese cities that we were staying in, like the laundry facilities are just right down the road. So we would often just go throw our clothes in there, do a load, come back to the hostel, read a book or watch something, go throw them in the dryer.
Okay.
You know, just do it like a local would do it. It was the same in the Airbnb. There was no laundry facilities, so we just had to go down the road and use the laundromat. But that works. And, you know, a lot of travelers I know will bring like just 2 or 3 outfits. And that's it. And if you want to get really travel hacky about it, I know that some travel hacker friends of mine buy like, it's like smart wool boxers and socks and things like that, or ex officio or something like that. Some kind of material that you can basically just shower in and it'll wash your boxers at the same time, and then they dry really quickly. I haven't done that, but I've had friends who are just like, "Yep, I just do that," and I don't have to.
Yeah,
do
I'm not gonna do that.
I can see you maybe not wanting to do that, but you know, it's a way to do things more efficiently. But yeah, bring a day pack, and I have a day pack that I got. I think I got it at REI that has like reinforced steel cabling through the straps, and then the zippers can be locked. So if you're worried about theft or something, someone snatching your bag or opening it, you could do that, and it makes it a little more secure.
Yeah.
And I think it's like also got like a wire mesh inside all the fabric, so it couldn't be slashed open as easily. So depending on where you're going, maybe look at the Wiki Travel article and stay safe. And if theft is a problem where you're going, you know, theft is not a reason to avoid a country. Because usually countries that have problems with theft, it's people looking for people who look like obvious marks. So I don't know, if you're like there with sunscreen on your nose and a Hawaiian shirt with like a flopping backpack,
and you got like $200 hanging out of your pocket.
Yeah, or you've got your gigantic Canon DSLR camera hanging off your neck, like you obviously look like a pretty easy mark. If you just dress conservatively, you're not flashing all your stuff around, you're not carrying a huge backpack on you, then you don't look like an easy mark. You know, also stick to well-populated areas. Don't be walking through alleys at night, things like that. You know, maybe don't go to the sections of the city that are known for theft.
Yeah, basically things I already do in my home area.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the funny thing about being an American is like often the city you live in is more dangerous or, you know, more prone to theft than where you're going. It's just that people tend to downplay the risks in their own cities, and they tend to upplay or play up.
It's because
why do we say downplay but then play up?
Because English is dumb. I don't know.
Maybe this would be there's a P on each, like the P on the end and the P in the beginning. Upplay sounds like you play, and I don't want to talk about Ubisoft things right now.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get the etymology.
That's it. It's related to Ubisoft.
That's what it is. They knew that was coming. So yeah, think about having a day pack. And then I think it's also very useful to buy a portable USB battery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a few of those.
Because sometimes you just, I don't know, you need to call an Uber or you need to pull up Google Maps or whatever.
I don't want my phone to die when I'm in the middle of somewhere I can't walk home well from.
I definitely had my phone die a few times in the middle of Tokyo and had to just sort of figure out how to get back.
Those batteries are great.
Very worthwhile. And I think the only other thing I was going to mention here is for planning, again, like don't try to plan too much, but Wicked Travel's good. And then when you're there, talk to hostel employees, talk to other travelers, and ask them what they enjoy, what they think is good to do. Because that's how you find out about really fun things that maybe a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, I should have mentioned this earlier. There's a website, roadtrippers.com, where if you're taking a road trip, so you can put in where you're at, your destination, and then you can sort of have it mark out where's good food.
Oh, yeah.
Where are good sights to see, where's some good nature, and you can, put in a couple places you want to stop. It'll tell you the specific distance between all of them and help you set up stuff. Because of this, I learned about the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas close to Missoula, Montana, and I got to see that because we specifically for that reason drove up a little bit farther north just so we could hit there and then go over to Seattle.
Okay,
whereas I would have missed that if I had just gotten in the car and put it in, give me instructions to get to Seattle. So it was a cool way to find extra stuff to see because especially if you're going to take a long road trip, you need to make it worth it. You're using a lot of time. So make it so that each day of driving has a fun goal in mind rather than just this day was a complete waste of my time.
That's true. Though driving from Denver to Iowa is always just a complete waste of time.
That one is not, there's not as much in the middle.
You can go to the Runza in Kearney.
I do not want to do that.
Get the Runza.
Yeah, I don't. I'm good. No, that one's less adventurous.
Just a little,
especially because driving back to Iowa is me driving back to things I already know.
That's very true.
Yeah,
driving back to your
not an
original
adventure.
Comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is true. Oh, I forgot about one thing. I've never used this, but couch surfing. I don't know if it's .org or .com. We'll have it in the show notes. But couch surfing is like there's a whole network of people who just let people crash on their couch or let people stay with them for free. And I haven't done it myself, but I've got friends who have gone and done it. And a lot of times the hosts are super nice and like go show you the town, all kinds of cool stuff.
What do they get out of this?
Companionship.
Okay. Maybe they use the network too.
Or they also will often use
maybe
the
they
network.
also okay, I was just like, what are they? They're going to steal my kidneys, probably.
There's a verification.
I need one
process,
of those.
just like Airbnb.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of funny, right? Because like for some reason it seems like Airbnb seems a lot safer than couch surfing, but the only difference is that it's free. Because couch surfing also has the verification. It's kind of weird, but
well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. You can just do that. There's another one that I haven't used. It's called Trusted Pet Sitters, and it's like people who want to go travel but want to stay places for free. Like if they're verified on the platform, they will be pet sitters for people in the cities they're going to. And then like vice versa, if you're traveling and you need someone to pet sit for you, then it's like a trusted network of people who could just come and stay at your place and watch your pet, take care of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So there are ways to make the lodging aspect free. They're just maybe not as flexible as places that cost money for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good info dump there. So for all the cats out there listening to this podcast, hopefully your travel plans are shaping up. There's lots of good tips here.
You got to be a good adventure cat.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be a good. Our cat's being a good adventure cat. She gets to go outside now. Just in the yard, though. All right. So if you want the show notes for this episode, because this is one of those episodes where the show notes are very worth it, there are a lot of resources we mentioned, then cigpodcast.com/260 is the URL you're going to want to go to find all those links, URLs. And you can also just go over to regular old cigpodcast.com to find out how to subscribe to this show. So if you're just watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it in the browser, you can go subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addicts, I don't know, Pocket Casts. That's what I use. But I don't know. Those first three are probably the biggest ones to do. Spotify's pretty convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got some music
I
on
don't
there.
know podcast apps very well.
Check out my SoundCloud.
It's not the same app.
Check out my mixtape, man.
That's different.
I could have a mixtape on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, but it's not your SoundCloud. You sending people to the wrong site.
That's true. Check out my Spotify cloud. And if you want to help support this show, you can give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That helps to bump us up the rankings. It's very helpful for us. It also gives us good feedback, so big ups to you if you do that. Or another great way to support the show is to simply share it with a friend and maybe share your favorite episode with them so they can become a listener as well. But as always, we just appreciate that you are hanging out with us and listening, and we will see you in next week's episode. Stay cute.